Complete story of Frank Castle, Earth 616. Early life. Born in Queens, New York to Sicilian immigrants, the young Francis Castiglione studied in the seminary for a time, married his wife, Maria, who was already pregnant with their first child, before enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, eventually rising to the rank of captain. During his time in the USMC, Castiglione graduated from boot camp and then went on to United States Marine Corps School of Infantry. While still in training, Castiglione met Fan Big Hawk, an American Indian scout. He was assigned to be Castiglione's guide, and through Fan, he learned how to survive in the wilderness. Following his training, Castiglione served for the Marines for 4 tours. Despite being one of, if not the best sniper in the Corps, it is generally implied that many of his superiors didn't like him and put him in situations where they hoped he would be killed. At one point, his friend from training, Roger Wong, was found to be running a black market supplying the locals with weapons. To keep him away from the trial, Frank was sent stateside for a month, running a recruitment office. It was here that he met Linus Lieberman, who would soon become Microchip, for the first time, when he disqualified him from the draft for having flat feet and being overweight. He did not remember this meeting later, but Microchip did. He fought in numerous engagements and was the only survivor, from both sides, of a Viet Cong assault on Valley Forge Firebase in 1971. For heroism in the line of duty, he was decorated with the Medal of Honor, the Navy Cross, 3 times the Silver Star and Bronze Stars, 4 times the Purple Heart, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. After finishing his second tour of duty, he came back to the United States and had a second child with his wife. He then signed up for a third tour, for which he illegally re-entered the U.S. Marine Corps under the name of Frank Castle in order to return to battle. Castle ran special Black OP training missions for Marine Recon Commandos in the upper New York State area. While on leave, Frank took his wife and 2 small children to Central Park in New York City. Coincidentally, the family happened upon the scene of a mob killing on the Sheep's Meadow Green in the park. Fearing witnesses, the mobsters murdered Castle's family in cold blood and escaped. Castle managed to survive the attack but was deeply traumatized by the incident. He was going to testify in court to identify the shooters, but Castle was denied this since the New York City Police Department were deeply connected with the Mafia. He decided not to return to Marine duty. When mobsters slayed his family, Frank Castle vowed to spend the rest of his life avenging them. Now equipped with state-of-the-art weapons, he wages a one-man war against crime as the Punisher. Castle uses his combat experience, guerrilla, and urban warfare techniques, as well as detective-like skills to achieve his mission. This includes using the Mafia's own tactics against them to track down and kill those responsible for the death of his family. In the modern era, he clashed with Spider-Man, believing him to be a common crook, but the two became uneasy allies. He mistook him again as a criminal when Tarantula was hijacking ships. When Moses Magnum's Deterrence Research Corporation, DRC, was hired to develop a toxic biochemical gas, he tested it on kidnapped innocents. Punisher and Spider-Man shut down this operation. Though Magnum narrowly escaped death, he took down the International Industrial Alliance and the Syndicate. He teamed up with the X-Man Nightcrawler to bring down Jigsaw, who was trying to frame Castle for several killings. He teamed up again with Spider-Man to stop the Hitman from kidnapping John Jonah Jameson. Spider-Man even tried to stop Punisher from killing Lorenzo Jacobi. Spider-Man tried to stop Castle again when he murdered a Swami, but it was revealed he was an assassin in disguise. This eventually led back to Dr. Octopus intending to poison the city. Castle received a dose of the poison and attacked Spider-Man in his disorientation, but Spider-Man formulated a cure for him and left him tied up on the pier while he went after Doc Ock. Castle was found by a police officer and arrested for his crimes, stating that he would not fight police and they were on the same side while in prison on Rikers Island. Frank continued his war on crime by killing his fellow inmates whenever they attacked him, as happened regularly, as he was understandably not very popular with the criminals there. However, Castle was busted out of prison by a cop who wanted to use him to stop a narcotics shipment that he was instructed to leave alone. When he killed the drug dealers, he learned that they were using children in their operations. He declined to go back to jail and instead went to track down the drug dealers. Castle was confronted by Daredevil, who was trying to take them down legally. While trying to take out one of the dealers, someone killed his target first. Later, during an interrogation of the thugs, Daredevil showed up enraged by Castle's lethal methods. Because Daredevil is an innocent, Castle decided not to kill him and shot him with a tranquilizer dart and continued with the interrogation. Unfortunately, the drug lord was arrested before Castle could get to him and was being defended by the law firm Nelson and Murdoch. Worried they would get the drug lord free, he decides to kill him before they have the chance. After Matthew Murdoch got him acquitted, he admitted that he did kill his partner, and it was his pacemaker that disguised the signs of his life from Murdoch's enhanced hearing. Castle went after them and teamed up with Daredevil. But after they took down the drug lord, Daredevil shot Castle and took him back to prison. Now locked up in Dannemora State Prison, he threatened a new inmate, Boomerang, that if he didn't behave he would not survive. He then offered Boomerang one more chance, help him escape from prison or die. The duo planned an elaborate escape, but as they were leaving, Castle betrayed Boomerang, knocking him down into the guards, and escaped by himself. Vowing to kill the Kingpin, Castle became unhinged, attacking anyone committing almost any crime, including firing on people for littering and speeding. It was later revealed that this madness was the result of being drugged while in prison. He assaulted the Kingpin's headquarters simultaneously with Cloak and Dagger, while Spider-Man attempted to protect the Kingpin from him. During a one-on-one fight, Castle threatened Vanessa Fisk, which sent the Kingpin into a rage and he nearly beat the Punisher to death, but left him alive and escaped. Castle was taken back into custody. Later at his arraignment, District Attorney Blake Tower told the court that he believed that Castle should be tried for all of his crimes as he willingly committed them. However, the defense argued that since the murder of his family, Frank Castle had gone completely mad and needed to be institutionalized. Upon hearing this, Frank refused to believe that he was mad and lashed out, telling the judge that the entire system is crazy for letting criminals walk the street. Before collapsing in a nervous breakdown, he was judged incompetent to stand trial and sent to a psychiatric facility. When the effects of the drug eventually wore off, Castle was deemed sane and sent back to Rikers Island. Castle remained unfazed until he encountered Jigsaw, a mobster who got away. The two tried their best to kill each other. Eventually, Castle was able to escape again thanks to the Trust. However, on the outside, he learned of the Punishers, a team of mercenaries working under his alias, whom he was intended to lead in a mass cleansing of criminals. He infiltrated the Trust to learn the truth and found its leader, Alex Alaric, torturing and brainwashing former criminals into believing they were the Punisher. He was confronted by a brainwashed Jigsaw, also believing himself to be the Punisher, but Jigsaw's hatred of him was able to overcome the brainwashing. Castle was able To take down the trust and its entire operation, the most lasting effect of the trust's work was erasing Frank Castle's records as part of freeing him from jail, giving him an anonymity with the police that would help him for years. He began working with David Lieberman aka Microchip, who helped him on his one-man war against crime. His war against organized crime goes global when he focuses his sights on the international drug trade. Castle's personal war against the cocaine czars forces him to secretly leave the States and strike at the source. Bolivia. Castle tried to build a new, peaceful life for himself in the Midwest, but this ultimately failed. Castle confronted the malevolent leader of a dedicated and well-armed cult, but ultimately he took down their leader, the Rev. Castle was caught in the midst of nuclear waste, atomic terrorism, and international intrigue. This landed him in a life-and-death shootout high above the city. He later tried to take down a group of white-collar criminals. This led him to hunting down the Skid Row slasher Daredevil, tracked down Alfred Coppersmith, a killer putting cyanide in aspirin, but ends up having to save him from Punisher's brand of justice. He stopped a gang of criminals who was smuggling illegal aliens into the country. Castle broke into prison to take out a cult leader, but it also meant he had to escape by teaming up with a group of inmates. Castle makes a tribute every year to his family by going to the park where they were slaughtered and flying a kite as they were doing when the tragedy happened. We will see how Frank Castle's commitment makes him help a family in need. We also learn how Montoya, an ex-mob member, will soon be released from jail for good behavior. He took on the Assassin's Guild, and later became a substitute teacher while investigating drugs being run in a school. Castle tried to keep a kid from going down the same path he did, and not only that, but he had to go after a man he sympathized with. Castle was later drugged and beaten, and an old ally, Hector Montoya, who was out of prison, was determined to kill him. Castle's war against the Kingpin stepped up into high gear as he drafted a small army to help him battle the crime lord. But even an army may have not been enough when the Kingpin sent his newest assassin after Castle. Castle was secretly training a small army to attack the Kingpin. But the Kingpin's latest assassin started picking off the Punisher's men one by one. He killed the Kingpin's top assassin and tried to destroy the Kingpin's casino as well. This led to a one-on-one confrontation, where both men escaped alive. Afterwards, the Punisher teamed up with Power Pack. He then traveled on a mission to Australia, and then Las Vegas on a mission to Madripoor. He took on Wolverine. He then dealt with a crooked boxing promoter's scheme to bank $1 million for himself by wrecking the career and the life of the boxer who trusts him. He vowed to bring justice to Iris Green. The trail leads him into a secret ninja training camp. Castle tried to eradicate an extremist pseudo-military organization whose goals were the same as his, but their methods were devastatingly different. Castle was transformed into a drug-maddened berserker, and Moon Knight was his first victim. Castle battled Damage and his New York City drug cartel. He teamed up with Black Widow and the Shadow Masters to battle the Sunrise Society. Along with the Shadow Masters, they square off against ninjas and Iris. He was forced to protect a whistleblower from high-level Pentagon officials who want him silenced. Things get out of control fast when the Punisher finds himself forced to hijack an experimental submarine and is chased by a full-scale nuclear sub with orders to terminate him. The Sniper returned to face Castle again. Castle had to expose U.S. government procurement corruption, leading a corrupt general to declare total war on the Punisher. Eventually, it was evident that the war on crime had taken its toll on the Punisher's mind as he was losing his grip on his sanity. In order to help his friend, Microchip locked Frank Castle up in one of their safe houses. He then found a former Navy SEAL named Carlos Cruz and hoped he would be less violent in his actions. In the meantime, Microchip tried to bring back the Punisher's sanity with psychological experiments. The Punisher eventually broke free of Micro's holding cell and threatened to kill him. It was at that precise moment that Stone Cold bombed the wall they were standing next to, seemingly killing Microchip. After the Punisher killed Stone Cold, he started to wonder if he would really have killed Microchip himself. Seeing him dead, the Punisher simply walked away. The betrayal of his former partner had put Frank over the edge. It was then that Nick Fury apprehended the Punisher, and had him locked up in the SHIELD helicarrier. The Punisher, however, more deranged because of these events, managed not only to escape but apparently kill Fury when he tried to stop him. It was however later revealed that it was not Nick Fury who had been shot, but a life model decoy. Nevertheless, Frank became a target for the law even bigger than ever before. Frank eventually regained his sanity and returned to his crusade against crime, this time more in a shift towards the superhero community. Feeling an oncoming rush of danger, however, Frank went undercover and was not seen for a number of months. Taking the alias Mr. Smith, took an apartment in New York where he reluctantly befriended the neighbors Spacker Dave, Mr. Bumpo, and Joan the Mouse. Castle decided to strike fear to the criminals of the city by targeting the Nucci crime family. He planned to kill Ma Nucci, the matriarch of the family, but not before making her suffer first by killing her criminal sons Carlo Nucci, Bobby Nucci, and Eddie Nucci. This however turned into a full-scale war and he was shocked by how ruthless Ma Nucci was. She used her connections with the NYPD to make them bring Castle to justice as well as putting a price on his head. They established the Punisher Task Force, assigning Martin Soap as its head. 83 The Daredevil tried to stop him but ultimately failed. 91 A number of hitmen came to collect on the job, including the Russian. Ma was shocked to see Castle when he appeared on her front lawn holding the Russian's head. The remainder of her soldiers threw down their guns and left, saying that she can't pay us enough to fight that. Castle then burned the Nucci house to the ground, after raiding a safe and stealing some of Ma's money and secret documents, with Ma inside. Wolverine, Daredevil, and Spider-Man team up to finally deal with Castle. He was on a mission destroying the Irish mob when he was confronted by the trio of heroes. But he was able to taunt them enough to set them off against each other, allowing him to escape. He continued his mission, but allowed the heroes to catch up and took Wolverine out using a rocket launcher. He trapped Spidey in a room full of explosives. Daredevil however got the upper hand and tackled him out a window. But he survived and warned Daredevil to leave him be. Spidey was freed when it was revealed the explosives were fake. Castle contacted Matt to arrange a meeting, but when they arrive they find the Hulk. He destroyed the building. He then convinced Daredevil and the other to leave him alone. He revealed that he had been feeding stew filled with plastic explosives that when detonated reverted him back to Banner. Initially Castle was not concerned about the civil war between the heroes until the government started using superpowered criminals to enforce the law. This act made Castle enter the war on the side of Captain America and the Secret Avengers. After rescuing Spider-Man from pro-registration forces, he brought the beaten and unconscious hero to the anti-registration hideout. Some heroes were apprehensive about having the vigilante in their midst, while some were outraged not wanting him there at all, but after he assured them that he could get them into the Baxter Building, Captain America allowed him to join. Unfortunately, on the eve of the final battle, two supervillains attempted to join the anti-registration forces and the Punisher killed them outright. Enraged, Captain America attacked Castle for his lack of self-control and for not finding the better man within himself. When the war was over, Frank found himself on the run from GW. Bridge and Shield once again won. After the Skrull invasion, Norman Osborn became the head of SHIELD and renamed it HAMMER. Frank attempted to shoot Norman, but the sentry stopped the bullet. Sentry began to fight Frank. Frank was able to hide in his van until a man named Henry led him to a hideout. Henry then gave Frank information on a drug ring he wanted the Punisher to eradicate. Hank took photos of the fight, which made the newspapers. Norman Osborn read it and ordered the Hood to have Frank killed. The Hood needed help to take Frank down, so he brought Microchip back from the dead. The Hood said he would bring back David's son if he took out the Punisher. After Microchip failed to do so, the Hood summoned back some supervillains from the dead to help take out the Punisher. The Hood then took GW. Bridge's wife away and killed her, while his son was kidnapped. The Hood also took Frank's family out of their grave. Frank saw the Hood and Microchip, with GW. Bridge tied up. The Hood told Frank to kill Bridge so he could have his family, and Microchip's son, back from the dead. Frank refused to do so. Microchip took the Hood's gun and killed GW. Bridge. Microchip's son and Frank's family were brought back to life. Frank was shocked to see his family alive. Frank used Firebrand's flames to burn his family and Microchip's son alive. The Hood and Frank battled it out. While Frank was on the losing side, he bribed the Hood with one of his family members. The Hood let him go and told him that Henry was Jigsaw's son. The Punisher went back to his van, kicking Henry out. Henry then said, "Don't you want to undo what happened in the past?" Frank gave a straight no and drove off. Soon after, Osborn dispatched Dakin and dozens of HAMMER agents to kill Frank. When Frank and Dakin fought one-on-one, Dakin emerged victorious, slicing Frank to pieces. Those pieces were then recovered by the Moloids and the Man-Thing. After his death at the hands of Dakin, Castle was resurrected by Morbius and the Legion of Monsters as a patchwork Frankenstein-like creature to help them against a group of samurai-like men led by the mysterious Hell's Guard, who killed monsters for not being of God. At first Frank refused to help them out and disappeared into the sewers. The living mummy later tried to reason with him and showed him Wolfman's armory. Again he refused. When the group attacked the monster's hideout, Frank was angered by the death of a child Moloid and fought back. After intense violent battles alongside the Legion of Monsters against Hell's Guard, he would eventually take his revenge against Dakin in Tokyo, but was interrupted by Wolverine. At the conclusion of the series, the character was transformed back into a normal human through use of the namesake of Ulysses' Bloodstone. After healing completely, he started hunting the Hood but without results, so he went after Micro. On his way, a woman in a black leather suit attacked him. She pretended she was his burnt wife, but it was later revealed that it was Lady Gorgon, who he had also burned working with Jigsaw. This all ended with a final confrontation between Jigsaw, Henry, and Frank. Lady Gorgon was killed by Master Yoshio Kya, a leader of the Hand, and Jigsaw fell in a fire. Frank told Henry that if he ever saw him again, he would kill him. A violent gang war resulted in the murders of nearly 30 people at a wedding reception, including the groom, leaving the bride, Marine Sergeant Rachel Cole Alves, a widow just hours after getting married. Frank had connections with one of the detectives on the case and used the information he gave him to kill members of the Exchange, the group responsible, before the police had a chance to question them. He left one alive and followed him as he searched for a safe haven. But his bosses knew he was marked by the Punisher and killed him, then sent the new Vulture to kill Frank. Though he won his battle with the Vulture, he was left seriously wounded, and spent the next 3 months recovering back in action. Frank journeyed to upstate New York on a mission to kill multiple exchange managers. There, he encountered Rachel Cole Alves, who was using her Marine background to get revenge on the exchange. Since they both wanted the same thing, the two began to work together. Eventually, Frank learned that Daredevil was in possession of the Omega Drive, a data drive made of unstable molecules containing information on multiple crime organizations, which Frank wanted for himself. Daredevil refused to hand it over to him, but Frank agreed to help him destroy it since it meant he could spend the night fighting crime. However, Rachel wanted the drive to help her get revenge on the exchange and stole it off of Daredevil before he could destroy it. It took some convincing from Daredevil to get her to return it. Rachel then fled the scene angry that she has let her emotions dictate her actions. Frank confronts her and has her prove her loyalty to the mission by making her burn her wedding photo. With a renewed sense of focus, the duo made their move against the exchange. Rachel confronted Stephanie Gerard, the leader of the exchange, in her heavily protected office while Frank shot his way in through the window using bullets tipped with adamantium to destroy the bulletproof glass. The confusion gave Rachel the chance to kill Gerard with a garrote, but Gerard's partner Christian Poulsen, who harbored an unrequited love for her, reacted violently, slaying everyone in the building, innocent or not. Though they stopped him, his actions resulted in dozens of deaths, including 3 cops, whose deaths were blamed on the Punisher. The duo split up, but Rachel, having killed one of the cops on accident, wanted to end her life out of guilt. Frank stopped her but she was brought in by the police shortly after. When the news reached Spider-Man, he asked for the Avengers' help in bringing him in. Frank continued his mission outside the country even as Black Widow pursued him around the globe under the orders of the Avengers, only for him to slip away. Thor soon found him and convinced him to return to New York and help save Rachel from the death penalty. But instead of turning himself in, he freed her just as the Avengers planned. However, they did not anticipate his actions and he was able to buy her enough time to escape. As a result, he was captured by the Avengers and placed in a special cell designed by Iron Man that separated him from other prisoners he might try to kill. At one point, the Punisher was recruited by General Thaddeus Ross to be a part of his new Thunderbolts team alongside Elektra, Deadpool, and Venom, but he went rogue and started killing his fellow members, starting with the leader. And thus, Frank returned to a life of an outlawed vigilante. When the United States was taken over by Hydra, the terrorist organization's newest Hydra Supreme, a fascist Captain America from another timeline who had secretly supplanted the real one, took advantage of Frank's idolization for the real Steve Rogers to persuade him into joining their cause, offering him all the resources he could need to wage his war against crime. Furthermore, Captain America disclosed to the Punisher about Hydra's plan to use a cosmic cube to change reality, which entailed the possibility of Frank seeing his family again following the fall of the Hydra regime. Frank realized that he had been manipulated, and set out to wage war against Hydra's remaining forces in order to atone for his mistake. Not long afterwards, Nick Fury Jr. sought Frank's help to contain the political turmoil in the turbulent nation of Chernia since the situation involved SHIELD agents from an secret outpost set up by Fury himself that went rogue after the organization went under. To this end, Fury facilitated Frank access to a War Machine armor castle, used the armor to pursue the Chernayan despot General Petrov and eventually killed him. After fulfilling his mission, the Punisher opted to keep the War Machine armor against Fury's orders, and used it to continue his war on crime back home. Frank's use of the War Machine armor didn't go unnoticed, and he was quickly targeted by the superhuman community when he returned to America. While on the run from the superheroes, Frank went after Baron Zemo. He was overpowered by Hydra's forces, but Black Widow and Winter Soldier helped him on Fury's behalf. With their help, Frank intercepted Hydra's attempt to break out the fascist Steve Rogers out of the Shadow Pillar. In the middle of the breakout, Frank was once again confronted by members of the superhuman community, including Iron Man. In the end, Jim Rhodes, the former owner of the War Machine armor, stepped in and convinced Frank to hand over the suit. Frank was taken into custody, but he was broken out by Black Widow and the Winter Soldier.